Let me ask you something honestly. Have you ever set a boundary only to watch it disappear a few days later? You told someone no. You said you couldn't help. You explained your limits clearly. And then somehow you ended up doing the thing anyway. Maybe you softened your words. Maybe you gave in after they pushed back. Maybe you convinced yourself it wasn't a big deal. And before long, the boundary that felt so clear in your mind slowly dissolved in real life. If that has ever happened to you, you're not alone. And more importantly, it doesn't mean you're weak. It means there's a deeper pattern operating beneath the boundary itself. Because most people assume boundaries fail because they didn't say them strongly enough. But that's rarely the real reason. The real reason boundaries collapse is because the nervous system is trying to protect something more important than the boundary itself: connection, belonging, safety, and approval. When those things feel threatened, the body will often override the boundary to restore harmony, even if that harmony comes at your expense. This is why boundaries can feel strong in theory, but fragile in real situations. You know what you need. You understand what would be healthy. But the moment someone reacts, disappointment, frustration, confusion, something inside you hesitates. And that hesitation is where the boundary weakens. March has been preparing you for this exact conversation because we've been working with Energy Body 3, the positive mind, the part of you responsible for holding direction, holding a decision even when emotions fluctuate. But the positive mind doesn't operate alone. It works alongside the nervous system. And if the nervous system still associates boundaries with loss of connection, it will quietly sabotage them. Now add the influence of the universal year one. And as I've said before, year one is about identity. It asks a powerful question. Who are you becoming through the decisions you repeat? Not just the boundaries you speak, the boundaries you maintain. Because identity is built through repetition. If your boundaries collapse under pressure, your nervous system learns that protecting others' comfort is more important than protecting your own limits. But if your boundaries begin to hold steady, something shifts. Your identity reorganizes around self-respect instead of approval. And if you're new here, hi, I'm Cherry. I'm a spiritual life coach, numerologist, and energy body teacher. And on this channel, we explore the deeper energetic and psychological patterns that shape how we live. Not just what boundaries are, but why they succeed or fail in real life. Because when you understand the pattern beneath the behavior, everything becomes easier to change. So today we're going to explore the real reason people allow their boundaries to be crossed. Not with blame, not with shame, but with clarity. Because once you see the pattern clearly, you stop fighting the surface behavior and start transforming the root. So take a breath here. Notice your body. Because this conversation may bring up memories of situations where your boundaries didn't hold. And that's okay. Awareness is always the beginning of change. To understand why boundaries collapse, we have to understand something fundamental about the nervous system. Your nervous system was not designed primarily for happiness. It was designed for survival. And for most of human history, survival depended heavily on one thing: belonging. Being part of a group meant safety. Being rejected by the group meant danger. So the nervous system developed an incredibly strong sensitivity to signs of disconnection, disapproval, conflict, rejection. Even subtle tension in a conversation can trigger the body's threat response. This means that when you set a boundary and someone reacts negatively, your body may interpret that reaction as a potential loss of safety. Not logically, but psychologically. Your heart rate changes, your breathing shortens, your muscles tighten, and your brain begins scanning for ways to restore harmony. Often the fastest way to restore harmony is to remove the boundary. You soften your words. You compromise. You say yes, even though you meant no. The nervous system relaxes because connection feels restored. But the cost is that your limit was abandoned. This pattern often develops very early on in life. Many people grew up in environments where maintaining peace was more important than expressing personal needs. Maybe conflict was uncomfortable. Maybe expressing disagreement created tension. Maybe approval came from being agreeable, helpful, or accommodating. Over time, the nervous system learned an important rule: keeping the peace keeps you safe. And that rule continues operating long after childhood has ended. This is why so many people understand boundaries intellectually, but struggle to maintain them emotionally. Their mind knows the boundary is reasonable, but their nervous system still associates boundaries with potential disconnection. And when the body perceives disconnection as dangerous, it will often override the decision. Energy Body 3, the positive mind, is designed to help with this. The positive mind holds direction even when emotions fluctuate. It allows you to say, this is still the right decision, even when the situation becomes uncomfortable. But if the nervous system is overwhelmed, that steady direction becomes difficult to maintain. This is why we spent the earlier weeks of March working with regulation and awareness, because boundaries require both clarity and nervous system stability. Now bring in the energy of the universal year one. And year one asks you to establish a new identity pattern. And identity is not built through intention. It's built through repeated behavior. Every time you maintain a boundary, even when someone is uncomfortable, your nervous system learns something new. It learns that connection does not disappear simply because you expressed a limit. And over time, that learning weakens the old conditioning. So let's pause for a moment. Think about a situation where you allowed someone to cross a boundary even though you knew it wasn't right for you. Notice what you felt in that moment. Was there tension, fear of disappointing someone, a desire to avoid conflict? Those sensations are not signs of weakness. They are signals from the nervous system that learn to prioritize connection. And once we understand that pattern, we can begin changing it. Underneath almost every boundary that collapses, there is a belief quietly operating in the background. A belief that often sounds like this. If someone is upset with me, I've done something wrong. This belief is rarely conscious. Most people don't walk around thinking those words directly. But the nervous system often behaves as if that rule is true. When someone reacts negatively to your boundary, your body immediately interprets their discomfort as a signal that you need to fix something. Not necessarily because you actually did something wrong, but because you were conditioned to feel responsible for other people's emotional reactions. So let's slow that down. Imagine you tell someone, I can't help you with that today. And they respond with disappointment. Maybe they sigh, maybe their tone changes. Maybe they say something like, oh, okay. Even the words are neutral. The energy feels different. And in that moment, your nervous system starts asking a silent question. Did I hurt them? If your conditioning says that upsetting someone means you've done something wrong, the pressure to repair that situation becomes very strong. The easiest repair is often to remove the boundary. To say yes, to change the decision, to smooth the moment. But here's the deeper truth. Someone feeling disappointed does not mean you've done something wrong. Disappointment is simply the neutral emotional response. When expectations change, people are allowed to have emotions about your boundaries, just as you are allowed to have limits around your time and energy. Those two things can exist at the same time. This is where many people confuse kindness with responsibility. Kindness says, I care about how you feel. Responsibility says, I must fix how you feel. When responsibility replaces kindness, boundaries become extremely difficult to maintain because every emotional reaction from someone else feels like a problem you must solve. Energy Body 3, the positive mind, strengthens when you begin holding a different belief. A belief that sounds like this. Someone else's discomfort does not automatically mean I've done something wrong. This belief creates space. It allows your nervous system to remain steady even when another person is adjusting to a new limit. And when your nervous system stays steady, your boundaries stay intact. Now bring in the influence of the universal year one again. Year one is where identity shifts begin. And identity shifts are rarely comfortable. If you have spent years prioritizing harmony over honesty, then expressing boundaries will naturally create new experiences. People may react differently. Some relationships may need to adjust. Some dynamics may change. But those changes are not signs that something has gone wrong. They are signs that the environment is responding to a new standard. So let's pause here for a moment. Think about one boundary you've tried to set before. Did the boundary collapse because the request was too difficult, or because someone reacted emotionally and you felt responsible for fixing it? That distinction matters, because when you stop assuming responsibility for everyone's emotional reactions, maintaining boundaries become much easier. One of the biggest fears people have when they begin strengthening their boundaries is this: if I hold my limits, I will lose the relationship. Will people pull away? Will they think I'm selfish? Will they stop coming to me? These fears are understandable, because if you spent years being the person who smooths things over, who helps, who accommodates your identity, has likely been shaped around maintaining harmony. But harmony that requires you to abandon yourself is not real harmony. It's imbalance. Healthy connection allows room for both people's needs to exist. Your boundaries don't destroy connection. They clarify the condition under which connection can remain healthy. Think of boundaries as information. They tell other people how your energy works, what you can give, what you cannot give, what behavior feels supportive, and what behavior feels misaligned. Without that information, people are left guessing. And when people guess incorrectly, resentment often builds quietly underneath the surface. So boundaries are not just protective for you. They are also clarifying for the relationship. Energy Body 3 strengthens when your decisions become steady. The positive mind doesn't require perfection. It simply requires consistency. When you begin holding boundaries calmly and clearly, something interesting happens. Your nervous system starts learning that connection can still exist even when limits are expressed. At first, this may feel uncomfortable because the old pattern expected harmony to come from accommodation, but the new pattern allows harmony to come from honesty. This doesn't mean every relationship will respond perfectly. Some people will need time to adjust. Some dynamics will shift. And occasionally, certain relationships may move away entirely. That can feel painful in the moment, but it also reveals something important. Connection that only survives when your boundaries disappear were never truly balanced to begin with. And when your standards change, your environment begins reorganizing itself around those new conditions. Now bring this back to Universal Year 1. Year 1 is about beginning again with intention, not repeating patterns simply because they felt familiar. It invites you to create relationships that reflect the person who you are becoming, not the roles you once played. And that means allowing connection to evolve alongside your self-respect. So again, let's pause here. Think about one situation where you might normally soften your boundary to avoid tension. Now imagine holding that same boundary calmly, not aggressively, not defensively, just clearly. Notice how that changes the dynamics in your mind. Often the shift is subtle, but subtle shifts repeated consistently change the entire structure of a relationship. When boundaries become steady, something powerful happens. Your energy becomes more stable, your communication becomes clearer, and your relationships begin forming around mutual respect rather than unspoken expectations. Let's take a moment to bring everything together, because boundaries are rarely about communication alone. Most people already know what they want to say. They know the limit they would like to hold. But the real challenge appears in the moment when someone reacts, when the energy shifts, when someone becomes disappointed, frustrated, confused. And in that moment, the nervous system asks a quiet question: is this safe to maintain? If the body associates boundaries with disconnection, the boundary often collapses. Again, not because you are weak, because your nervous system learned to prioritize harmony. But March has been preparing you for something different. With Energy Body 3 active, the invitation is to strengthen decision integrity. The positive mind holds direction. It allows you to say, this is still the right decision, even when someone else is adjusting to the boundary. That steadiness is not aggression, it's self-leadership. And inside a Universal Year 1, this matters more than ever. Year 1 is the beginning of a new cycle. A cycle where identity begins forming through the choices you repeat. Every time you maintain a boundary, your nervous system learns something new. It learns that connection does not disappear simply because you expressed a limit. It learns that respect can exist alongside honesty. And gradually, that learning changes the way you move through the world. So as you move through the rest of this week, remember something simple. When someone reacts to your boundary, pause, breathe. Notice your body. Remind yourself, their reaction does not automatically mean I have done something wrong. Allow the moment to exist without immediately trying to fix it. Because sometimes the most powerful change you can make is simply allowing a boundary to maintain where it is. So take a breath here. Feel your body. Feel the space around you. Your limits are not obstacles to connection. They are part of the structure that allows healthy connection to exist. And when your boundaries begin to hold steady, your entire environment begins to reorganize around that clarity. Before we go, if this resonates, if you're feeling that inner yeses in your soul, make sure you hit that subscribe button and tap the notification bell so you never miss a transmission. This channel isn't just content, it's a frequency, a sacred remembering. A space where you're called out and called home, all in the same breath. So if you're ready to rise, heal, and reclaim your truth, one video at a time, like this video, drop a fire or heart emoji in the comments, and let me know what landed for you. And if you need extra help, there are freebies in the description box below. Let's co-create this new earth together, one soul activation at a time. Welcome to the remembrance. See you in the next video. Bye for now.